The name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back. Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
Wham! Concave. First try. Why so serious?
He's a fast killer.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
I'm drinking pump. I've been drinking green tea all goddamn day.
I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this.
Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Good Day for a Movie podcast. I'm Jacob Roth. Alongside me, Tate.
What's up?
And the other person.
Who still remains anonymous.
Yup. We're here. How we feeling, fellas?
Feeling good. Feeling ready for a movie. I feel like it's been a minute. Last one we watched was more than a week ago.
Not to the listeners' ears, though.
Oh, no. To them, it comes out weekly on the dot.
Our dedicated listeners probably watched the movie and listened to the last episode last night.
The dedicated ones would be this.
The dedicated ones, you know, they're listening to it the minute it comes out.
Oh, so I thought I was being optimistic, but I'm not being optimistic enough.
No, but that's the dedicated ones. The one timers, or the people that are just kind of catching up. They might be listening to these back to back.
Yeah, that's true. I need to have more faith.
'Cause I gotta have faith. I gotta have faith.
Gotta have faith.
I need to also have more faith in my movie to be scared.
What are we thinking? Should we just hop right into it?
The only thing he has told us is that it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and
Very
I'm scared.
long.
Because it could be good, it could be bad.
Oh, boy.
And by good, I mean like a 7.5 to 8.5 range,
Oh,
and bad,
boy.
anything below 6.5.
We've got a ceiling of like 85.
Pretty much. In my
He's up, setting his expectations low. Maybe that's his whole...
extremely pessimistic
You know what?
today.
All right, that little uh-oh that you just heard was my laptop dying. Forgot to plug it in.
Died
Died very fast. Just no warning.
mid warm-up.
It just said, your battery is critically low. And I went, uh-oh, I better go plug it in. And then it just died.
It's a bad omen for my movie.
But we're back.
We're back. We're back. Don't worry about it, folks.
And was just downplaying his movie.
Still am.
Still is. But he has yet to announce it, so we still don't know what it is. So,
Okay. You ready for it?
yeah.
I follow directors. One of my favorite directors is Robert Zemeckis. And so we are going to watch Contact.
Contact.
I don't know if I've ever heard. I mean, I've heard of Contact.
1997 Contact?
Should be. Yep.
All right, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah.
So I like watching or trying to watch all the movies by my favorite directors.
Wait. First, real quick, what else has he directed?
Forrest Gump, Back to the Future, Castaway.
I'm very down.
Polar Express.
Matthew McConaughey,
Beowulf. It's got
Jodie Foster,
McConaughey.
Tom Skerritt,
Oh, boy. I'm
John Hurt. Yeah.
downplaying this
Has John
stage,
Hurt?
but the cast seems
Oh,
to
I didn't
be...
even see that. Well, and so the fun part
Saying
about
different.
it, the
William
reason
Fichtner?
I got latched to it, is it's based on a novel by Carl Sagan. Do you know who Carl Sagan is?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So it's
No, I don't know who Carl Sagan is.
Carl Sagan.
I don't read.
Was like a big influence in astronomy and astrophysics. He is, I believe, the mentor for Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Interesting.
And Cosmos. I think he made the original Cosmos, and Tyson.
Rob Lowe's in this. Jake Busey. Yeah, I'm in. Fully.
Busey, like Gary Busey related?
Yeah, his brother.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what kind of movie? Kind of science fiction film about an encounter with alien intelligence.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It could be good. It could be strange because it is a sci-fi in the 90s.
Drama, mystery, sci-fi, thriller. The genre is on IMDb. I'm in. Let's do it.
It's streaming on HBO Max.
Perfect. Love it. All right, folks. We'll be right
in.
back.
transmission of an unidentified radio source from deep space can neither be confirmed nor denied.
Whatever it is, it ain't local.
Position?
I checked interferometry somewhere in Lyra, I think.
Vega?
Can't be. It's only 26 light years away.
I want all these people out of here.
Your having sent this announcement all over the world may well constitute a breach of national security.
Well, this isn't a person-to-person call. This may be an announcement to get our attention.
The president's called an emergency meeting.
You know those interlaced frames that we thought were noise? This has structure.
I'm going to recommend to the president that we militarize this project immediately.
There's no reason to believe that their intentions are hostile.
There's no proof of that.
Why don't they just speak English?
Mathematics is the only truly universal language, Senator. Buried within the message itself is the key to decoding it.
Those look like engineering schematics, almost like blueprints.
It is our belief that the message contains instructions for building some kind of machine.
A machine?
It might turn out to be some kind of a transport.
Transport? The fact is, you don't know what it does. It could be anything.
Nobody's saying this isn't dangerous.
They're gonna build it.
Who gets to go, though?
It's complicated, Ellie.
Who gets to go?
By doing this, you're willing to risk your life. You're willing to give your life and die for this. Why?
You son of a bitch. You surprised me again with your movie pick.
Not bad. I really enjoyed it.
I'm a happy boy today.
I liked it.
I did too.
Yeah, that was very good. There were a lot of.
I got a lot to talk about it.
Yeah, I have a lot of notes.
Yeah.
It was very Robert Zemeckis. I mean, there were a lot. Just how much time kind of went by kind of reminded me a lot of Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump's
really
a long movie
liked
too,
it.
right?
Yeah, Forrest Gump's 2.5, maybe a little more.
Yeah. He likes his long movies. All right, who wants to start?
Well, I think we should start from the beginning and talk about how cool that intro was.
Yeah.
So for the folks that maybe didn't watch this 2.5 hour movie, or maybe you didn't catch it. So the intro starts with you're kind of rotating around Earth from space, and you're hearing a bunch of different radio frequencies and whatnot, and you slowly start moving out, like to the other planets. And as you're moving out, you're moving backwards through time.
Of like songs,
and then
radio broadcasts.
There were a bunch of things that just kind of throughout history. I can't remember what that last one was, but I'm sure it was probably the first radio broadcast would be my guess.
And then it just goes silent.
Yeah, then it just goes silent.
For about like a minute probably even, and it was just all visual.
Yep. Yeah, it was a really cool visual, and I mean the sound editing throughout the entire thing was just phenomenal.
That was a really good director. I don't know how he does like was Bill Clinton actually in it?
No, so we're gonna get to that.
I jumped away from your point, but I wanted to go back to your point.
Yeah, we'll get to the Bill Clinton stuff because I looked it up, and good thing. So this was before there was in the Oscars, before there was best sound design and best sound mix. I can't remember the Oscar categories, but there was just one category for sound, and it was nominated for best sound, which definitely deserved it. It did not win.
Did you find out who won?
I have not. I am looking it up as we speak. Somebody else talk about something else.
I can talk because this is a point I was very excited to talk about. So that first clip totally reminded me. I was reading up on Carl Sagan before this. He was a part of Voyager. Do you know what Voyager is?
It was a book, right?
It was
the space mission.
Yeah, the space mission. So we sent out a record of human history and human culture around the world on a little vinyl recording that was sent out through space, and I think it's like outside of our solar system now. But he was a part of it, and so that was like a cool thing to watch that intro, thinking about Voyager, because it's carrying and projecting.
Wait, so what was Voyager?
Voyager is like
they just took human artifacts.
It's a mix of it's a mix of our cultures. So songs, speeches, history.
Like a time capsule?
Like a time capsule.
That they just sent into space?
Of the human race. Yeah. That was sent into space.
Huh.
Yeah. You don't know about this?
Well, no, I mean, I guess like once you said it's the space mission or whatever, then that kind of rang a bell. But no, I did not know what it was.
So Titanic won the
Was on
Oscar
it?
for Best Sound.
Oh, Titanic did.
Other nominees: Air Force One, Con Air, Contact, and LA Confidential. I don't think Titanic should have won. The everything from the mix, and there were multiple moments where I was like, "Whoa, this is really cool sound type of stuff that's going on right now." Throughout the movie, to kind of, I guess, mansplain a little bit about why the radio stuff was going backwards in time. So sound goes out into space, like, and the further away you are, the later in our history that you are, or I guess earlier in our history that you're hearing.
Well, it's like that idea where like the picture of Earth or whatever from a different planet would still see dinosaurs because that's how fast, or that's how long it takes light to even travel.
Yeah.
Let alone sound, but at least that's something that I've heard.
And so like just all of that combined with just how they were playing the different things on top of each other, going into the next one was just awesome to start out with.
Yep, I agree.
Anywho, though, so Voyager was just this thing that they sent out into space just cuz.
That's a real thing that we did. So I think it's just that's
well,
a
it was just like
side tidbit into who Carl Sagan was and how I'm
kind of more curious about this
that
Voyager
mission
thing,
alone.
The point of that was
that mission alone has to do with this movie. Okay. So I do have a quick little background on Carl Sagan. I read his book Billions and Billions, which is like his philosophical perspective on life. And it's cool to read a book like that by an astrophysicist because I feel like that duality was totally played out in this movie in kind of a cheesy way, but also a very brilliant way of
the
how
duality of faith versus science.
And science, yeah. And how he
that's kind of what I want to get it to.
Yeah, because for him, I don't think it was a duality. I think it was one and the same. And I found this long quote. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I could if you wanted me to.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. This was a quote by Carl Sagan. Spirit comes from the Latin word to breathe. What we breathe is air, which is certainly matter, however thin. Despite usage to the contrary, there is no necessary implication, the word spiritual, that we are talking of anything other than matter or anything outside the realm of science. On occasion, I will feel free to use the word. Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined is surely spiritual.
That's actually really cool that you brought that up because that's like my main reason about why I think I like this movie a lot is that duality that you're talking about between science and faith. But what you just said reminds me of I think it was a article that I read one time where he's talking about it was written by a bunch of scientists where they were narrowing down planets in our like galaxy. They were just like, what could hold human life or like any life form. And so they were like, okay, what does Earth have? And they're like, Earth has several things. It's blah, blah, blah. It's got gravity. It's got all these layers. It's got like a certain distance from the sun for like warmth and everything. It's got all these things. And so they're like, all right, so there's about 1,000 planets that we could live on. And then when they like slowly started to be like, oh, there's one other thing. Oh, there was all these other like little things like distance to the sun was a big one that narrowed, like took out a bunch of these planets. And they found out that there wasn't actually like 1,000 planets. And then it got narrowed down to like 4 and then 2 and then 1. And then it even went the opposite direction, and that it was like Earth and life on Earth is actually in like 1 in like a million chance. And so it was like this article written by these scientists saying, like almost turning from not religious, kind of like this Jodie Foster character, like not religious at all, purely scientific, empirical data, proof, all that stuff, and then turning them into somewhat religious people because they're like, everything here is just incredible. Like, you cannot find this anywhere else.
So, yeah, I think we should... I was planning on getting into this kind of science versus religion type of debate in a little bit, but I think we should just hop into it now. And as a man of faith and, like, a pretty devout Catholic, I don't think, like, science and religion are conflicting at all. And I think that is... just because there's a scientific reason for something doesn't mean that disexplains the biblical meaning for it. That can just be in my view, the scientific meaning for everything that happens on Earth is God's way of showing us, hey, now you understand like what I did here and that type of deal. So yeah, any movie that kind of tackles that fight between faith and science being like diametrically opposed and then bringing them together at the end is a movie right up my alley.
Yeah. No, yeah. That's why I really liked Jodie Foster's character and McConaughey's character were awesome.
Yeah, they were the two pillars of science and faith.
And they were the coming together, basically, of both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was, throughout the entire movie, even when she was put on that pedestal and it was given her the job to do exactly what she wanted to do and was like born to do kind of thing, she still stuck to, I'm not religious, I don't believe in God. And that lost her at the job. But after her spiritual trip, basically, even though it was just basically through a wormhole, it was spiritual because she experienced it and like no one else believed her, but she had the faith and everything.
But there are two. Can I go into that a little bit? There are 2 points on that. It was hilarious how her arguments were, are you going to lean on facts or faith throughout the movie? And then in her kind of final trial, she is put on this facts or faith.
Yep, she's put against her.
And she is flipped on the opposite. And then the other point of that is the use of Occam's razor against her.
Yep.
Because she kept saying like the simple answer is the scientific answer, and then it flips to where the simple answer is the faith answer. Yep. Oh, that's awesome.
I think that summarize like that small, I wrote down in my notes after the movie, that interaction that they had when they were at the post-president kind of like where they were updating the president.
Ball.
Yeah, at the ball, when they had that little interaction out on the balcony. And he asked her about faith and
love.
And love.
Did you love your father? And she said, yeah.
And he says, prove it.
Yeah.
Like that entire interaction right there, I think was like the perfect summary of this entire like debate and this entire movie.
I got one for you.
What do you got?
Occam's razor. You've ever heard of it?
Occam's razor. Sounds like some slasher movie.
No, Occam's razor. It's a basic scientific principle. And it says, all things being equal, the simplest explanation tends to be the right one.
Makes sense to me.
All right. So what's more likely? Thank you.
You're welcome.
An all-powerful, mysterious God created the universe and then decided not to give any proof of his existence. Or that he simply doesn't exist at all. And that we created him so we wouldn't have to feel so small and alone.
I don't know. I couldn't imagine living in a world where God didn't exist. I wouldn't want to.
How do you know you're not deluding yourself? I mean, for me, I need proof.
Proof? Did you love your father?
What?
Your dad, did you love him?
Yes, very much.
Prove it.
Yeah, because I think that was her whole debate with him, but then it gets turned right back on her own head at the very end of the movie. And of course he's there watching.
The awesome thing is, I don't think Matthew McConaughey or that side felt like, oh, I won. They were like, holy shit. It was almost like both sides were like, holy shit.
Yeah, but at the same point, I don't think that McConaughey's character necessarily ever changed his beliefs.
Mm-mm.
It was more of like, see, this is what I've been trying to tell you this entire time. That and like, even when like his first confrontation with Tom Skerritt's character, there where he like kind of confronts him and he's like, sure, like I don't doubt that science is real and whatnot, but it needs to be in the search of truth. And that's like, I think that's kind of where, well, I mean, it is where it ended up, because that was the last like little piece that he said there when they were getting into the car.
And it's just the wording in that. I don't think it was like, this is what I've been trying to tell you the entire time.
Right.
It's a coming to realization, like, this is what I've been fighting for, and there isn't, like, I think we've come to an agreement.
Yeah, I think it wasn't a showboaty of like, this is what I've been trying to tell you. It was like a, yes, I'm so glad that you finally understand what I've been trying to say. Like, not in a showboaty way, but in like a loving way, if that makes any sense.
Well, and even then, because it was still like a slight denial of technology. Like he had a denial of technology.
No, he didn't. He never had a denial of technology. What he didn't like technology because he made a point there. I can't remember where it happened in the movie, but talking about how
it affects third world countries.
Everybody is so connected now, but we've never been so alone, which is truer to 10 times the degree now in 2020.
Yeah, I think the point I'm trying to make is that just the wording of that makes it seem like Jodie Foster's character.
My wording?
Yeah.
Oh,
Jodie Foster's character had to come 180 to his side, where it was a mutual.
I don't think it changed him still believing that a lot of the things that science has done, because he was never against searching for other life in the movie.
Yeah, no, but I think there was doubt for him that it was going to work. Her traveling, and I think that was not. I think they were both kind of symbols of faith, but of different faith. Because she gained a sense of faith.
What
in a sense?
So are you trying to okay? So I can see where he grew there, where he didn't want her to go because what they kind of figured was actually the exact opposite, where it would be, they thought when she left, it would be like 4 years for her, but it would be 50 years in Earth time, where it ended up being 18 hours for her and it was 40 seconds in Earth time. And so his reason for her not wanting to go is like, hey, you have all of this great stuff here. Why do you need to go looking for other things? And by the end, I think he was probably thinking like, oh, like I understand now why people would like to go search for this stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
He's still, I'm sure the character still believes that all this technology and whatnot to advanced civilization still might not be a net positive.
Yeah. So I think on his side, there's more than just our world and our faith, but on her side, it's knowledge isn't just facts, it's faith. I think it's almost a metaphorical or symbological coming to Jesus on both sides. It's like, okay, I don't know everything about my situation or our situation, but there is a balance and we see each other right in ways that we didn't see before. And yeah, kind of in Matthew McConaughey's words, let's go search for truth.
I thought it was a pretty interesting, because, well, you remember the book 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson?
Yeah.
So when he talks, like, it made me think a lot about this book when he was talking about his path, his like life path with religion, and how it was very, I think it was tied with the philosopher or the Dostoevsky. Was it Dostoevsky?
Yeah.
Or Nietzsche or someone. It was Dostoevsky or Nietzsche, or the one that was the Russian philosopher that
Dostoevsky,
that kind of initially when he was younger lacked faith in religion because of the proof and because of the like said things that you need to believe in it weren't there, and he was a man of like wanting to know everything. It was kind of like that, like his idea of like duality of truth or whatever, the duality of truth. And then he said after many years of doubting religion because of this lack of evidence, he said he finally like came to the point in his life where he thought it was better to have faith even with the lack of evidence of God or of Jesus or of anything than it is to not believe at all. So, and like I thought that was kind of like,
and he's not alone. There's
yeah.
C.S. Lewis is another one that comes to mind. He was the one that wrote Narnia. He was like a self-proclaimed atheist, and his whole transition was kind of the same thing. It was
Yeah, I'm a big C.S. Lewis fan. C.S. Lewis is one of my favorites.
But I thought it was interesting because I like throughout the whole movie, I thought this was going to be like an anti-religion movie because Jodie Foster is kind of the main character, and the whole time she was just like talking about how she doesn't believe in religion, and because she believes in things with empirical facts and all this stuff. And so I was like, okay, I understand where this movie is going. And I thought Matthew McConaughey was just kind of like a side character just to kind of like question her a little bit. which he was. But then in the end, it turned out, I think, to be a religious movie, or like, I mean, not a religious movie,
sure.
but
I think it certainly
a movie
was.
on faith.
Yeah. Maybe not a religious movie, but it is a faith movie, and a movie that implies that to have faith is good for you.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say that Jodie Foster's character in the end was a like Christian or anything like that, but she just had faith in what she believed in,
and
didn't care and wasn't fazed by what anybody else telling her otherwise.
And in all likelihood, that means that, like, because you kind of got that feeling where she like kind of looked down upon people of faith and people that like truly believed, even though they knew that there was no empirical evidence for their beliefs. She can now kind of look back and be like, oh, like, I went through this thing, so now I understand why you believe what you believe. Like,
yeah,
and vice versa.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the Rob Lowe's character. They were like polar opposites when they were at the president's table, like arguing with each other.
Yeah, but I mean, I even think that Rob Lowe and Matthew McConaughey's character were about as opposite as well.
Oh yeah, they were different for sure. Yeah. That was, yeah. But another kind of,
which I think, well, one quick little tidbit, because I think that like this whole discussion on faith and everything, and when you just, I think you had you kind of hinted on it when you said, talking about like looking down on other people, when like that scene where in the back behind her on that wall it said astronomy, believing in astronomy or something like that is always looking up.
Yeah, and I think it was like one of those sleep bumper stickers.
Yeah,
I think it said astronomy, always looking up.
Oh yeah, something like studying astronomy or believing in astronomy or something like that is always looking up.
Yeah.
And that just kind of even ties into the end. That whole idea of having faith is like he's trying to beat her down at the end, and he's trying to say, so you're saying like you don't have proof of this, you don't have all this, and she just kind of was disregard whatever he said and just kind of kept looking up, basically in a metaphorical sense. But
and the thing that I just love is it continuing to come back to Carl Sagan, was that just seemed to be his point, was that scientists don't have to lack faith, and people of faith don't have to lack science. They can be, he was almost trying to be this, both Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey as the same person of, I have this scientific experience and knowledge, but I also have this Matthew McConaughey philosophical sense of faith and trying to seek truth. And it just seemed to scream Carl Sagan for me.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get it, this topic kind of leads into one of the big questions that I had written down. Is it important for somebody who meets with another life form, like an alien, to believe in God? Not even like through the lens of, or not through the lens of to be a good representation of the world, but as a person who should, like, does the value of like believing in God and believing in faith, is that necessary to be able to talk about these big things that you would probably have to talk about with aliens?
Oh, I think for sure. And I think I'm going to answer that as far as, I don't think that necessarily has to be through a religious, like Buddha or Jesus Christ or anything. Like, I think it's anybody that kind of has a faith of a higher being or of some sort of God, basically, whatever they kind of see as God. But yeah, I think, someone that's not an atheist or someone who doesn't believe in anything, they would not be a good representation. So
I fully agree. I mean, I think, I
completely agree. Because I like myself, I don't consider myself a Christian or any, I don't associate with, I guess, any official religion, but I do believe and have a belief in some sort of higher power. So in that way, I would say yes.
And I think that was kind of reflected in the movie too, of the difference between Jodie Foster's character and the lead scientist. What was his name? The actor's name?
The guy from The Dark Knight. Oh no, Tom Skerritt. You're talking about
Tom Skerritt's character. When she said, when she was talking to Matthew McConaughey and she asked him why he asked that question and everything, and she said, well, I told you the truth and he told you what you wanted to hear. Like, I think that was an expression of the kind of person to meet other life, because she was who she was, and she was searching for a certain kind of truth. But at the same time, not knowing so, she was open to a new kind of knowledge, or a new kind of her answer to the question was a sense of adventure, and that I think
what was the question for that?
Oh, so you're talking about when Matthew McConaughey and her were like talking at the reflecting pool.
Oh, he said why?
And she said why would you want to go? And her answer was like, well, like she was kind of trying to answer for everybody that was applying for it and was nominated for it, and he was like, no, why do you want to go? And that was her answer.
I can't remember if it was that or the do you believe in God question. But she said, or for a sense of adventure was her answer. And like the combination of sense of adventure, seeking truth, her reflection on that experience, being spiritual, that I hope that answers your question. But I think those are the elements of being a spiritual person, or quote unquote someone who believes in God, as the person to meet extraterrestrial life.
And I thought it was kind of cool because you can almost treat this idea of like this like outside life form, this other intelligent life, basically as a god almost. Like you can almost treat it that way because they are, I don't know, I felt like I was kind of getting that sense from the movies. Like they almost don't know anything about, they know almost as much about these other life forms as they do, like as anybody knows about God. Is like they can have all these ideas and thoughts and like say, oh, I think that this is what they're trying to get us to do. Oh, I think that this is what they're blah, blah, all these things. As same as like a religious person would say what God is trying to get us to do or wants us to do. But so I think that they were almost at times, I thought this during the movie at least, that they were trying to almost make a connection of like this outside life form is just like her interaction with it is almost like an interaction with God.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. I don't think that.
I don't know if that's what they're going for, but I thought that was an interesting.
Yeah,
could be an interesting.
Because like the difference there is, like Christians believe that God has given them these teachings and God sent down Jesus, so in a way they do know a lot about God and they do know God.
Yeah.
Whereas the aliens, like this is the first contact.
Yeah, and I guess like I was making a stretch, but.
For sure, I get you.
I was just thinking about like her. How
do we want to get into some of the Bill Clinton stuff?
Yes, please. Because that's a total Robert Zemeckis move. Like, how did he pull off a lot of Forrest Gump stuff?
Yeah, so I was very confused when Bill Clinton popped up, and IMDb is just one of my favorite apps to have on my phone. So I went through there and was trying to find him on there. I'm like, is this like a credited role? No, not at all. So the first speech, the good afternoon, I'm glad to be joined by my science and technology
that was probably
advisor.
Taken from another.
Yes. So what happened was, in 1984, a meteorite thought to be from Mars was found in Antarctica, and 12 years later, an article by NASA scientist David McKay was published proposing the meteorite might contain evidence for microscopic fossils or Martian bacteria, and that was later refuted that it's not actually that. And so that was his press conference about that, and they cut out a few words, and put in that speech because it was just generic enough where it fit.
It fit, yeah.
And then that last one, that I would encourage you not to inflame the situation beyond the facts. Let us deal with this on the facts. We are monitoring what has actually happened. And that was from Clinton talking about Saddam Hussein and Iraq in 1994.
Huh.
So it wasn't even
crazy.
And so the White House actually... the White House counsel sent a letter, and they didn't threaten any legal action or anything like that. And it was pretty much, hey, if anybody else ever does this, you're getting sued out your ass. And so they just that's why we really have never seen that again.
They went for it and asked for forgiveness instead of permission.
Yep. Because permission wasn't going to happen.
Classic Robert.
And kind of because of that, CNN was afterwards they're we feel like we probably shouldn't have been involved in this either, and there was a conflict because CNN's owned by the same people who own Warner Brothers, which is the producer of this movie, and so after this movie, they're like, all right, well, now we have to put any movie appearance from any of our anchors using the CNN like logo and stuff. It needs to go through like a board of ethics now.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That actually isn't what I thought. I thought
groundbreaking movie.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I thought that little snippet of him was going to be like when it kind of showed him, that was going to be a legit speech that they took from. But then when it kind of panned over and then just showed him on the kind of like blurry in the background on all the TVs and then the rest of that speech, I thought that was going to be somebody that kind of sounded like him, but not.
Well, I think it was, because then there was the later scene on the president's table when he was with like the two actors next to him.
Yeah, that was...
that had to be a lookalike. Otherwise, that was some crazy video editing.
No, that was just some sort of editing. They probably used some sort of green screen technology and put him, like, removed his background and put the background as the actors, because it was him.
Speaking of technology, I like most of the stuff in this movie way over my head anyways. I'm going to admit that right now. But I don't think that's how computers work.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those scenes.
Yeah, there were scenes where like she would just like click the right arrow a few times and then it would
that's
just like
also
zero
pretty
in.
classic Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah.
He pretty much simplifies.
Yeah.
A little, yeah.
And also like the last razor. Like 3/4 of the movie with they had like a plane that was pretty much a Quinjet from Marvel that like perfectly landed on an aircraft carrier.
Did it ever give us like a time frame?
No.
Oh, well, except for it said that she was born in.
Well, I mean, it did because
it was
Bill
like
Clinton.
Supposed to be in like the 90s.
It was in the late 90s, probably.
Okay.
The book was written in 1984.
Yeah. So, I mean, since they used Clinton as president, that gives us a pretty 8 years. It took place in 8 years somewhere. Man, Jake Busey, a real dick.
I actually did make a note. I was like, man, do not want to mess with the Busey family. They seem crazy. Well,
yeah, when she was going into the ball and Jake Busey's character was like protesting and he just like gave her this look, I was
just
like,
stops
oh my
with
God,
his like speech and just stares at her.
Yeah, that was scary.
Yeah. You do not make eye
and then
contact.
and I felt like he just kind of like he's almost gonna be my nightmares just because like he just kept kind of showing up and I did not expect it. Like at that scene where they were giving the speech and everything, like that made sense because they're showing all these people, different types of people doing all their reacting in different ways. But then like all of a sudden, wasn't he outside of like that limo when she was going to the ball, or remember that?
Yeah,
he was going to the ball and he was like standing outside.
He was standing there and he just stared
she
at
just
her.
like made eye contact with him again and she was like what the, like during that scene I was a little freaked out.
Yeah.
And then again in that very last scene before he blew everything up. Oh.
Yeah, that was crazy. The visual effects I thought were fantastic, except for the weird double head thing that was going on when she was going through the wormhole. That was just kind of unneeded. If it wouldn't have had that, everything else was totally fine. I don't even know if you guys picked up on that.
No, yeah, I noticed it, but I wasn't, again, like I don't know anything about what
I was just like, well, that was weird. That was unneeded.
I'm not a wormhole expert.
The knowledge about wormholes between the three of us,
very high. I mean,
I'm no paleontologist, but
I know everything about wormholes.
I do know that there is like a massive time warp. So,
well, I mean, that's just because you've seen.
I do like how she was getting kind of slingshotted around in there. Like I was like, oh, that seems legit.
Yeah, good thing they applied those safety harnesses.
Yeah, jeez,
because she would have been a freaking scrambled egg.
I thought that the way that they did all that was very easy for a simple man like me to comprehend, and I'm gonna believe it. I'm gonna say
that's what happens when you go in a wormhole.
That's a wormhole if I've ever seen one. No, but that does actually get to that last scene, because Jacob, you touched on it earlier in the movie. Well, and right at the bat when you said this movie all hinges on how it's gonna end, completely believe that. Like, all right, that was spot on. Because in the end, like throughout the movie, I was just like, oh yeah, they're gonna either, like Jacob was saying, show some aliens, and what are the aliens gonna look like?
Man, this movie hinges on what these aliens are gonna look like, because I feel like a lot of the time that is, and I love their cheat around that.
Oh, it was great. Like I think the ending in general was awesome, and the way that they interpreted interacting with aliens as like them downloading her consciousness basically, and making it easy for her to
understand
talk with them and understand and not like freak out and have her mind blown, everything like that. Like how they did that. Perfect.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
I think I just had one other note. Alan Silvestri's score, very good. I really like him as a composer. He did a lot of the Marvel stuff, a lot of the big Marvel stuff, I should say. It wasn't overwhelming, but I think it really played up where it needed to play up. And he's kind of a Zemeckis composer. He did Polar Express, Forrest Gump.
I'm kind of curious how I never even heard about this movie. I feel like this is a really good movie that
we'll kind of get into it. It has some surprising aggregators ratings.
That's why I was before starting this, I was nervous of whether this was going to be a good or bad movie because it seemed good on paper, and I was like, man, with these reviews, it might just be a bomb. And yeah, I don't know.
All right, well, let's get into the movie rating because, well, at least what was it rated?
One more big question. What would you be doing if you were a civilian in this movie? This came up because at the scene where the teleportation thingy exploded, there were just a bunch of people standing there pretty damn close to it, probably about a mile away, and then it blew up and debris was just falling all over them. I would not be there.
I would be trying to do all of the most mischievous things I could. I'd just go rob a bank just because, world's about to end. Who knows?
Hookers.
There it is.
We don't know what's going to happen. End of the world, hookers.
Might as well head to Vegas.
Hey, I learned from my new idol, Brendan Gleeson's character in The Guard. I learned. I took a couple notes from him. He knew what he was doing.
Well, that actually gets to one of my questions. Do you guys believe in aliens? Yes or no? Ooh, this is more of a...
Believe in aliens or the possibility?
Believe that do you believe that we are the only life forms?
I should clarify that question.
Here.
Believe in aliens as if like they are already like around Earth and stuff and like UFOs, or that there's the possibility that we may contact them? Because the latter, yes.
Okay, both.
Prior, no. I don't think we've encountered aliens yet. I don't think,
oh, yeah. Not whether we have yet. Just do you think there are? And that's a two-part question. Do you think there are? And B, do you think we ever will have contact with them? Because I think you can say yes to the first one and no to the second. But if you say no to the first, then...
Yes. Yes.
Yes and yes?
Wait, what were the two?
Yes, right. I think that there's a distinct possibility that there is a lot of life out there in the universe. Again, obviously, I don't know for sure, but I think that it's more than likely than not. Again, I'm not a scientist whatsoever, but I would say yes.
This is all a belief thing. I think even scientists...
Do I think we'll ever contact them? Not in our lifetime. And I don't think we'll contact them. I think they'll contact us.
That was the second part. I see. So
it was a confusing question.
I agree. Yes and no. And the first part is
so yes, you believe there are aliens. No, you don't think we'll ever contact them.
Yes. And the first part is because universe is infinitely growing, and I was reading about this once about how we're in the Goldilocks, how Earth is in the Goldilocks. It's not too hot, not too cold. Theoretically, there are a lot of other young stars out there, and they're going to get to a point where there might be a planet in Goldilocks. So there's a lot of reasons to believe why there could be at different points in time in the universe in different places. But this also goes back to Carl Sagan, bringing it back around to the second part.
God, just marry this guy
already. They called it Sagan's paradox. And it was if there are... He projected that any civilization wishing to check on all the others on a regular basis would use a ton of resources. And if there were a lot, then there wouldn't be as much of a need to contact each other a lot because of the significant use of resources to talk to each other. So it's kind of like, and then it's the opposite. If there's so few of us, if there's so few civilizations in the universe, the amount of materials and resources it would take and how advanced we would have to be to make contact is so significant that we likely wouldn't even be able to make contact with each other.
Okay, I'm going to completely change my answer, kind of. I think that there are aliens out there. By aliens, I mean other life form. But I think we are the most advanced of any of them.
Whoa.
And that kind of brings it back to a couple things you just hit on one, and you hit on one before that, about how the scientists have looked for, they found like 400 that were possibilities for life, and that kind of dwindled down to like negative amounts. And you with your expanding Goldilocks theory about how there's a possibility for them in the future. So maybe one started in the last 100,000 years or so, and they're just where we were 60, 80, 100,000 years ago.
Or we could be at the exact same time, but 60 light years apart and see each other at different points in time.
Yeah, for sure.
They're at their dinosaur phase right now.
Yeah, man. This conversation, you would think that we have smoked lots of weed. Breaking news, folks. We have smoked 0 weed.
We are sober as a goofer.
Yeah, so all right, let's move into these ratings. So real quick, aggregate scores. Rotten Tomatoes 65%. IMDb 7.4 out of 10, and Metacritic 62 out of 100. Tate, I'm going to go to you first.
That surprises me a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I guess my closing thoughts on this. I love the movie. Definitely a long movie. Very slow build up, but it kept you entertained, kept you intrigued throughout the entire time, kind of like wondering what was going to happen, how it was going to play out. So I was very into the movie, even though it was a little bit long and slow. But I think that I'm going to go with, man, I'm a little torn on this. I don't want to go too high because I know I'm gonna stick with an 85. And I'm going to just, I guess because my favorite thing about this was the idea of discovering truth. And it kind of goes back to, I think I hinted on it a little bit earlier, but like the idea of duality of truth and how there's these two types of truth. One, like types of truth that we're meant to understand and we're meant to know. And that was kind of like the Jodie Foster's character. Like she was hunting down those types of truths, like the ones that uses science and math and everything to figure out the answer. And then there's the other types of truth that are the truths that we're never meant to understand and we're never meant to know. And we just kind of have to accept that and have faith in that it is true. And so I think that this movie just tied together that idea really, really, really well. So I'm a big fan, and I almost went higher, but I'm going to stick with an 85.
All right. I'll go next. We'll throw it to you last since this is your movie. I loved it. I thought this was a great movie. It's not going to get up into the 5 stars out of 5 stars range for me, but it is going to get up into the 4.5 out of 5 stars range. I thought all of the acting performances were great. I thought the story was wonderful, and stories are so hard to wrap up, and Zemeckis did such a great job of doing that. I am going to give this one a 93 out of 100. Wow.
That's our highest, single
highest
rating.
score ever.
That's in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Like I said, this whole religious versus science argument movie type of thing is right up my alley.
Jacob, are you trying to move in on Carl Sagan from?
Hey, you can borrow my book.
No, I said movie. He was not a movie maker.
Man, so my score is also an 85, 8.5 out of 10. I think that Zemeckis has some cheesy traits. You see it in Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, less in Castaway, but still he tries to keep his audience entertained and be a little goofy.
It definitely had a little cliche
had some
moments.
Yeah, and so that's the only reason it's an 8.5. But man, awesome movie, and love Carl Sagan, and I thought Jodie Foster did great. Matthew McConaughey is such a suave individual, just cash. He's made out of cash.
Sploosh.
And yeah, I think it's a solid 8.5 out of 10.
Jodie Foster also was perfect for this role.
Oh,
but
for sure.
Kind of annoyed me a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't like her voice.
She has such a bad voice.
Don't like her voice, but she was perfect cast for the movie.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for today. If you have thoughts or questions, you can shoot us an email at gd4ampodcast@gmail.com. That's a number 4 in there. You can also follow us on Instagram at gd4. One more time, that's the number 4, gd.movies. Again, gd4gd.movies on Instagram. And we're also on Twitter at gd4gd_movies. Third time, that's the number 4 in there. Again, gd4gd_movies on Twitter. We will catch you at the movies next week.
When you come to the end of the line with a buddy who is more than a brother and a little less than a wife, getting blind drunk together is really the only way to say farewell.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.